Well, welcome back to the shit show. Still don't know really what I'm doing with it or why I'm here. But oddly enough, I did start reading a book called Pulling Your Own Strings by, I think it's Dwight Dyer or something. Doesn't matter. But it's a book about, no longer being a victim of your own life, no longer being a victim of other people's circumstances, other people's happenstances, emotions, general ideas, anything. So here we are, continuing forward with something that lots of people have feigned interest in. So I have to thank my producer, Con Jory. I have to appreciate all the time that he's put into this and all the effort that's gone into it. And everybody that has followed me throughout this and encouraged me to do what I'm doing, continue to do what I'm doing, and just enjoy it. So this week, I decided to talk about my relationship with CJ only because I feel very compelled to talk about it because it's been on my mind for the past week. CJ is very important to me and has been for quite some time now. It feels like I've known him for a lifetime, which is very odd. It's not something that I really have felt in a long time. It's not something I really talk about a whole bunch because it's not something that I want to put into the universe until I know that it's true. So without further ado, I feel like it's time to talk about the story, how CJ and I met. I did talk about this story on my Snapchat, so those of you that have followed me through Snapchat, I apologize if you're seeing repeat videos, but here we are. We got to put it somewhere. My producer said, as...
Let it go out.
I did. I'm a piece of shit.
I'm not giving it back.
Yep, no one should. So I used to work, I'm just going to say the company names because I don't really give a shit. I used to work at Planet Fitness for an independent franchise. They had, I think, like 7 to 10 different Planet Fitnesses in the region in 2 or 3 states. So we were dealing with a lot. And I just never really took that job seriously because, side story, the night before I had my interview there, I matched with a woman on Tinder that would be the person that interviewed me, who would become my boss, who would then fire me, which that is a story for another day. But in the interim of me working there, I didn't really care about it much, but I did care about the people that I interacted with. I loved all of my customers and my regulars. I had a couple of grandmas. They were great. They always called me for help. They were so sweet. And amidst that, I met CJ. And how it happened was me and a coworker of mine were just talking about people who have flipped out at Planet Fitness, things that have gone wrong, fights that needed to be broken up, accounts that needed to be canceled, things like that. And one of the things we were talking about is this muscle hamster called, I can't even remember the fucking, like Blake or some shit, but we'll just give him the name Blake for right now. So we're talking about Blake and how he's being a musclehead. And she goes, oh yeah, the guy that's walking in right now caught me with this muscle hamster. I'm like, whoa, what happened? And so we are talking to CJ, and he has a presence about him. When he walked in, he is like a movie star. Like, it's very weird. He's got very beautiful, bright white, straight teeth. He's gorgeous. He's 6'4", 260 pounds, self-proclaimed. He's a brick shit house, and he was gorgeous when he walked in. And I'm, of course, staring at him because why wouldn't I? He's one of the most attractive men I've ever seen with my own 2 eyeballs.
Simmer down, Seabiscuit.
I'm sorry. I love him. He's great. Oh my goodness. So the first time I saw him, we had a counter like right here. I was behind our counter, but the counter over there was used for, people to write stuff, put their gym bags down, change their shoes, whatever they needed to do. So he always came in and he would take off his gym bag and take off his sunglasses and put them away. He always had a ritual about him. He's a creature of habit, I would say. So he set his stuff down. He's talking to us, and I'm, hi, how's it going? You know, how's your day going? And he's like, oh, it's going good. How's your day? Well, it's same stuff, different day. You know, giving him big smile, big, you know, warm, friendly. He introduced himself. He said, hi, I'm CJ. Of course, he said his real name, but he said, hi, I'm CJ. I said, hi, I'm Hannah. It's nice to meet you. We, you know, chatted a little bit here and there, and he was very sweet. He went on his way, and I eventually went back to talking to my coworker. I was like, so what happened? And she told me this harrowing story about how he stepped in for, you know, between this muscle hamster and this little tiny, she's buff, but she's tiny and she's very quiet and sweet. And we'll just call her, we'll call her N. That's not really her name, but we'll call her N. So N was there, and she, you know, got saved basically by CJ, which was very sweet of him to step in and do that. Of course he would. So I'm of course smitten with this guy, and after all of that, you know, went down, next like day or two, he comes back in and he had pizza for N. He hands it directly to her, and I was like, oh, what, we don't get any pizza? And he's like, well, it's for everybody, and, you know, make sure you get a slice. I was like, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you some crap. And he's like, oh, I know, but I like it. And I'm like, I know you do. And so we, you know, we were cool and very casual. He wasn't aggressive or anything weird. But one of my tasks every day was to do some walk-arounds of the floor, you know, every so often. So one day, I think it was the same day as the pizza, he stopped me on the floor when he was doing some like bike machine. He's like, hey, can I talk to you real quick? I was like, yeah, sure, of course you can. But don't be weird, you know? So I was playing it cool. And so him and I are chatting. He's asking how I like the job and how things are going. And he's like, yeah, you're probably the third or fourth manager I've seen in a while. I hope things last for you. And he saw my jewelry that I like to wear. This is actually pretty minimalist compared to what I used to wear. But he asked me where I got my jewelry because these are, you know, real and everything. And so he, well, the other one is whatever. So anyways, he asked me where I got them, if my husband got them for me.
Smooth.
And yeah, and I'm not stupid. I've been around a couple times. I am not dumb, which I like. One of the prime situations is my producer's friend. We'll just call him D. He's trying to be slick, but I'm not stupid. I knew from the start. But anyways, so he asked me that question. I was like, no, they're just, you know, gifts. I don't really like dating. Dating isn't my thing, blah, blah, blah. I give him the whole spiel because I am single. I don't like dating. I have been single for about 6 years-ish. So I don't like any of it, and I don't like people. But I'm like, why are you asking? And so he and I proceed to talk. Well, he doesn't like dating either, and you know, women his age are just annoying, and just, you know, they don't want to talk about anything crazy.
Should we put a pin in that? I mean, you brought it up, so it seems like that's something significant.
So we will put a pin in that.
Okay, please continue.
Yes, because I will have to tell you the story once I get back to the desk. So, you know, we're talking, and you know, he doesn't really, you know, like dating, and he thinks that women are kind of full of shit and blah blah blah. And I was like, you know, people are just in general are full of shit, and you know, we just kind of chat on and off. And then he asked me if my piercings, you know,
go all the way down.
No, if they help
facilitate.
He didn't ask directly, but he did for sure ask, you know, do the piercings help? And I responded very carefully and trying not to cheese my fucking brains out because I know what the fuck is happening right now. I am fucking just getting enormously excited, trying to not turn bright red, but he's like, I responded, well, I don't have the equipment, but I'm told that it does. And I was like, I also have 2 tongue rings, and I showed him those. Because why wouldn't you? So, I proceed to show him all of that, and then, we talk a little bit, exchange some light pleasantries, whatever. I end up continuing to walk on the floor. Later that day, about like an hour-ish later, he's getting ready to go back to the locker room and get ready to go. And so he catches me when I'm over by the water fountains, and we start talking, and he tells me how his daughter raises a specific type of animal where we're at. I guess it doesn't really matter. She raises horses where I'm at, because nobody knows where I'm at anyways. But she raises horses where I'm at, and she is really good at it. And I, being the ever so casual Casanova that I am, I said, well, you could always, he's like, oh, I don't have my phone with me. I was like, well, you could always give me your number and you could send me some pictures. And he's like, well, I was planning on asking for that anyways. And, and so then we end up talking a little bit, and we get on the topic of kind of dating again. He's like, oh, so you would never go out to dinner with somebody and get a burger with them? I was like, well, I don't know. If they're worth my time, maybe. And he's like, worth my time, and he kind of laughs a little bit.
Like a Happy Meal.
It is worth my time, as a matter of fact. And so we end up exchanging numbers. I called his number. I was like, hey, my number is a 515 area code number. So just so you know, that's me. I don't have a local area code. And he's like, okay, no problem, whatever. So I go about my evening. He goes about his. And I'm walking around the floor one more time before I have to leave. And my friend, who I'm still friends with to this day, she's great. She goes, hey, CJ called, his full name, and just wanted to say, hey, his phone was off. Or I don't think she said that, but she said something about his phone being off. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. And so I just texted him, and I was like, hey, it's me, whatever. And we didn't end up calling that night, but the next night we ended up calling and talking, and we talked about music and things that we liked, and, all of that stuff. And I was getting a little smitten because I like the sound of his voice. It's very, as I like to call it, buttery baritone. My producer has heard it. It is, oh, goodness. If he ever decides to come on the podcast, we don't have to show his face, but holy shit, could you imagine?
My panties would drop.
Oh my God, I know. That's why the first time when he started talking to me, he's like, howdy. I'm like, oh, okay, whoo, hi, okay, that's cool. Because I was already attracted to him, and then of course he starts talking to me. I'm like, whoa, Jesus H. And so this will circle back around to the pin. So he is a former government agent. We'll just put it that way. A government agent, not FBI or anything, but just some sort of government facilitator. And he has that stare, like that cop stare, but he's got these beautiful, like, crystal blue eyeballs. So it just fucking, like, he took his sunglasses off. I was like, oh, Jesus, okay. And he started talking. I'm like, wow, okay, I am gonna die. So, with that being said, he was a he was a former government agent, and I say former because he is retired, has been for a few years. He is 68 years old, I know that might be a surprise to some people that have been following the shit show. They may not know that. But yes, he is quite a bit older than me. However, we do get along really well. I do feel happy with him. So say what you will, comment what you will. It will only get more traction to the podcast. So do as you wish. With that being said, I knew he was 68 because when I went back to the desk after we had one of our first conversations, I, of course, went into his profile and looked at all of his information like a normal person, which is funny. I don't know if you know this, Conway.
That you're a stalker?
You probably knew that.
I did know
psychopath, that. Right? You probably didn't know this. CJ did not know my last name until like a couple months ago.
Wow.
And we've known each other since January.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I thought that was really funny because I'm like, I knew everything about you, where you lived, your name, your birth date, everything.
And as a former government agent, he could have found these things out,
He
right?
could have, but he didn't because he's very sweet.
Maybe his typewriter is broken.
Listen, he has a smartphone. So, listen, hear me out. I tried to get him on my Apple Music. I tried. But it didn't work. I don't know why. But anyways, so, long story short, we ended up calling and chatting. This was on like a Tuesday. And he goes, well, you know, would you be interested in going to get dinner with me? I was like, of course I would. What are you talking about? Of course. And he's like, well, how about we do this Friday? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm not doing anything with any of my evenings, so that's fine. So we go out, or we don't go out on Friday. He has to switch to Thursday because his daughter was coming into town, I think. Something like that. It ended up getting canceled, but it didn't matter. It was a blessing in disguise because we got one day closer to... Anyways, so he's like, hey, can we do Thursday instead? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. He's like, cool. Once you get off of work, you know, I'll give you a little bit of time to just like, you know, he didn't want to like overwhelm me. So he's like, I'll be there at like 5:30 because I was off at 5. And I was like, cool, perfect. And so I was pissed off that day. I left right at 5 and I got out to my car and I smoked. And he's like, meet you at the roller skate at 5 or 5:30. And I used to drive a smart car, for those that don't know. Used to drive one, miss her every day. But he's like, I'll meet you at the roller skate. And I was like, awesome, sounds good. So I'm smoking, waiting. And of course he gets out of his car when he rolls up. He looks at my car, he looks at it in and out because he used to be a car guy, used to do body work, and he's like, I'm curious. I'm like, of course, naturally. So he looked in and out, and then he ended up, saying, okay, well, let's go to dinner. He opens up my door for me, gets me in the car, super cute. He gets in, we drive over to this little, grill over, up kind of north of here. So we get there, and we're eating dinner and things are good and we're just chatting on and off. He looks real good, of course. He always looks good. Held the door open for me, the whole 9. And so we finish our meal. We get back. Before we get back in the car, we were standing there just kind of hugging each other a little bit. So, we get outside. We're hugging by the car. He kisses the top of my head real quick, which is super cute. Then he opens up the door again, of course, and I get in, and he's like, hey, you want to go over to this lake over here by us? It's like, I like to go and walk around there, and a lot of people do. As a matter of fact, my producer has walked around there a couple times, I'm sure. And so we go over there. It's dark outside, of course, but he's explaining all of these little places he likes to go and sunbathe because he is a tanner, if you couldn't tell. But he definitely likes his sun exposure. But, so he's like, oh, I like to go here, blah, blah, blah. So he parks the car and we're just hanging out, listening to the music. And I'm looking out this way and he's looking out that way, and we're just like, just enjoying it and kind of both leaning on the center console. We're obviously being weird, getting closer. I grab his hand, we're holding hands a little bit, he squeezes it a little, I'm smiling, he grabs my hair, and just starts rubbing my head and everything. I was like, this
Slow
smells.
down, I'm taking notes.
You should, because next thing you know, he grabs my hair and we start making the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yes, of course we do. And of course, this is where it gets R-rated, so for the squeamish, bye. He starts pulling out my titties and he starts fingering me at this fucking lake. Of course, I reach for his bits. We're getting at it. My titties are out. And then finally, he's like, whew, hold on. And then we had to like sit back for a second. He's like, oh, okay. Wasn't expecting that to happen. I'm like, me either, but holy balls. That was exactly what I was wanting to happen. Thank you. Good Lord. And I remember telling him, I'm like, oh, thank God we're on the other side of it now. Jesus. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I have masturbated to you. I think you're super attractive. I was really happy that you kissed me. I appreciate this. And he like kind of was taken aback. He's like, what? You masturbate to me? I said, of course. Like, I'm attracted to you, so why wouldn't I? You know, that's what people who are attracted to each other do. And he's like, you can't imagine the things I've done to you on that couch of mine in my imagination. I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. That is awesome. Whew, okay. And he's like, I just never thought that you, I'm like, I never thought that you. So here we are. And we're driving back to my car the entire time because we left my car at Planet Fitness. And he's like, you know, I really hope you would come over for pie and ice cream. I was like, of course I would.
I'll bring the pie.
Of course. And of course we don't immediately get to pie and ice cream. There were other things in the works. But another thing that was very sweet about him that I've always appreciated about him is that when I did smoke before we went to the date, he was like, it smells like you smoked, and he's kind of smiling. I was like, yeah. And he's like, no, I'm really glad that you feel comfortable enough to like know that I'm not going to judge you and know that you can like be high around me and not have to worry about it. He's like, you could have smoked in here. I was like, I'm not going to do that. But we have. He probably shouldn't have smoked and then drove, but he did. But anyways, so that's the story of how CJ and I met, and it's been on my mind because we've been on and off a little bit. We've been good, but on and off. Things are interesting. But I still love him, and I did see him last night, and he's very sweet. The text that he sent me when I got back home was very sweet. And he always makes me happy. Even now, talking about him makes me smile. So he's an important part of my life, and I felt it was important to share with those that are a part of it or going to be a part of it, to know the origins of some of my people, some of my places, you know, some of my things, building a story, because if you're going to be here for the long haul, you gotta know, because I have a lot of inside jokes and you gotta keep up. So don't be a bitch. Keep up.
Do you even want to be a wife?
Do you even want to be a wife? We'll get to that story too,
yeah.
Of course. That one's a classic because there's so many stories that came out of Planet Fitness, and that's one of them. And I just... that one's so good. Maybe we'll just make a Planet Fitness episode. That'll be good. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So anyways, thanks for joining the shit show. I always appreciate it. Thank you. Just keep watching. I don't know.
Like.
From me and my babies, like and subscribe. Make sure to share, comment, and follow. Somebody knocked one off.